Hello, everybody. It's Colin Ellis here, and welcome to yet another episode of the Culture and Coffee podcast. One of my friends said to me last week, he was just like, "And how many do you think you do?" I'm like, "This is just going to go on, and as long as I've got something meaningful to share, I'm just going to carry on doing it." If that's all right with you guys, obviously I'm looking at the numbers every week. If there's like one person's listening to it and that person's me to check the quality of it, yeah, then maybe not. Maybe not. Hello. I hope you're good wherever you are. And the leaves are out here. The sun is out. The leaves are out. That's great. Here for Monday, the 10th of October, 2022. Like the sun is out, but not everything is rosy, right? It's a tricky time for the world right now, with obviously lots of financial pressures. And I've been reading a lot recently in between doing research for the new book, which I'm hoping to start writing, well, hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So I think I've talked about this before. I do a period of research where I gather all of my ideas, and that means I can just sit down and kind of just spend the time then just kind of writing and absorbing everything that's going on around me. Because you always want to make sure. I never thought that I would write a book, but now I write books. What I want to do is make sure that it's kind of relevant in the time that I'm writing it, but also it's got a longer term view as well, because the publishing process, can take up to 6 to 9 months. And what you don't want to do is write, in 2022, because people will read it in 2023 and go, move on, move on. And that means that all the research has got to be current. It's got to be like within the last 6 months. And then I spoke to someone else about this, about sample sizes. It's like, when you're looking to quote research, certainly for me anyway, what I'm not looking for is like a sample size of 500 people. It's got to be, it's got to be pretty meaningful. Otherwise, someone might always say, yeah, but is a sample size of 100 people really representative of the world? And of course, it's not. It's not. So yeah, there's lots going on in the world right now. Reading a lot about kind of inflation and kind of the constraints on our own financials, and how the pressure's always put on the individual. It's fascinating. I'm not going to talk about it here. There are way better podcasts you can listen to about financial markets and stuff. But it's just not something that it's not something that I'm really that clued into, to be perfectly honest with you. So I've really enjoyed listening to that. I'm going to talk about purpose this week and why that's important. I've touched on it in the past, but I want to talk about the importance of it to culture and kind of moving forward. So let's do that. The coffee this week is, I picked this up when I was in New Zealand recently. It's from Cafe La Fare. It's roasted by Cafe La Fare. And it's from the Marcala region of La Paz in Honduras. I'm not sure I've done a Honduras coffee before. And you know me, I love the little blurbs on the boxes and the packets that you get. And this is a small batch release, and I like the small batch releases because it's almost like a once only opportunity for those who kind of drink any kind of spirits. Remember, it's quality, not quantity, kids. Is the small batches? It's done at a point in time and released, and I like that because I might never drink this coffee ever again. So it's not like the larger farm; it's like a smaller release, and it's got all of the stuff on the back. And it's a Comza cooperative in Honduras, which is great. They create this intensely fruit-forward specialty coffee. They use a natural process, an approach that's quite tricky to manage due to the humid climate. Every time I read this stuff, particularly in Central America, I always get this kind of wistful view of, being that kind of person. I just imagine myself there, almost like a Del Monte advert. Do you remember the Del Monte adverts? The man from Del Monte, he say, yeah. I always imagine that. Obviously, it's really hard to pick coffee cherries, though, so there's that too. Process takes several weeks, and during that time, delicious fruit sugars from the coffee cherry are absorbed into the coffee bean. Once dry, the beans are removed from the dried fruit. We lightly roast to amplify these fruit flavors. So it's grown at an altitude of 1,200 to 1,600 meters. The varietal, if you're interested, is Bourbon, Typica, and Quechua. Let's have a little taste. Wow. Dark fruit, I would say. It doesn't say. It's got no tasting notes on it here. Dark fruit, I would say. So plums, like dark chocolate. Yeah, very nice. Very, very nice. It's got quite a. It's a really rich taste. I generally like lighter coffees, but I do like this every now and again, and particularly first thing in the morning when this is the have a little glass of water first thing, and then straight into the coffee. I'm off to Europe in a couple of weeks, so I'm hoping to try some different coffees and share those with you as well. So let's talk about purpose. I mean, what can I tell you about? So I suppose the purest definition of purpose, and regardless of whether it's kind of an individual or as an organization, is an end to be obtained. And so I often think there's a tension with purpose and vision as well. So, I kind of liken the two together in a workplace culture context. Can you have a purpose and vision? Yes, of course you can. But essentially, a purpose is kind of the end to be obtained. This is what we're kind of working towards. But the key word there is obtained. So a purpose isn't some wistful, long-winded statement that you'll never achieve. That's the thing about purpose is I'll talk a little bit about this. When we're hiring people, we want people to connect to the purpose. So we use these phrases, I've got to connect. We want people to really connect with our purpose. And they will if they feel that, firstly, it connects with their own purpose because they've got their own end to be obtained. And the nature of purpose is it's evolutionary. No one just finds their purpose in a box and go, oh, my purpose is, oh, thank you for the gift. You get it for their birthday. Oh, thank you so much for this gift of my purpose. That's really kind of you. But they feel that it's shared, and they feel that they can actually get there. Interestingly, I was reading a magazine yesterday. I read Monocle magazine, and there was an interview with, and I can't remember who it was, so I won't even try and remember, but it was the chief purpose officer. I do remember that, the chief purpose officer for a major retail group, and talking about environmental and sustainability, and said, oh, well, obviously we can't change the world. And I thought, well, firstly, it's not obvious. And secondly, everybody can change the world. It's just one little thing that we can do. So I didn't take offense. It's not like I'm sat there on my nice Sundays in the sun playing a record. Who was I listening to? It was Elbow yesterday. Playing a record, being, I've been really offended that we can't change. Of course we can all change the world. We can all do a little bit. And particularly when it comes to environmental and sustainability, I think the key thing of that interview, sorry, I'm just going to sidetrack a little bit. The key thing when I read that interview and when this lady said there's a chief purpose officer, oh, we can't change the world. It's like you can, but you have to be prepared to sacrifice a little bit of profit. And I think that's the challenge for most organizations. It feels like a podcast in itself. For most organizations is, how badly do you want to achieve your purpose? Are you prepared to achieve it at the expense of 10, 20% of profit? Are you prepared to achieve it at the expense of inflated bonuses for senior leaders? How serious are you about this? Because if you're good with that, you can change the world. You just have to give up a little bit of profit. And kind of interestingly, I'll jump ahead to this, but there's a while ago, there's this concept of the quadruple bottom line, and the quadruple bottom line is purpose, people, planet, and profit, right? So the quadruple bottom line. So purpose is the reason that the organization exists and the aspiration it's got. The people is the people who work within the organization, and kind of the work that they do. The planet is, kind of what good are they doing in the world now and in the future? And profit is, what does enough look like to give value back to shareholders? Because I'm not naive enough to know that obviously people's pensions and super funds and all of these things are reliable on business profit. All of these kinds of things are all kind of interwoven together. However, What you want is for an organization to make enough money to give value back to its shareholders such that, people can build and grow for the future, but also do good in the world as well to make sure that it's not just about money. And I think this is the challenge for lots of organizations. It is to find that line where when we're, kind of when people, people who don't work for the organization are looking in, we can say they're doing really, really good in the world. And it's at the expense of some profit, not all profit. Understand how capitalism works. It's at the expense of some profit. And listen, we can argue long and hard into the night about, kind of capitalism, whether that's the right thing. Like I said, people are way more qualified to talk about that than me. I just think that it's really about identifying as a business, kind of where is it we're going? What is it that we're looking to do? What's the role that we wish to play in the world? And when you take the time to define that and you define it properly, right, then people will connect to that. And what they'll say is, I want to work for that organization because that purpose is something that I can buy into. No, it never used to matter. It never used to really matter that much because we never used to look at it. It's a real demonstration of how the world has changed, that employees now, particularly millennials and Gen Z, is, yes, they still want to get paid. I've mentioned this in the past. Yes, they still want to get paid. Yes, they want to be part of a culture that's talked about in positive terms. But also, what's the organization's commitment to safeguard the future of everybody? What's their commitment? People, definitely nowadays, people want to know that they're doing their bit to help and to contribute. And the concept of a shared purpose then is where those people feel invested in the organization, right, to take the actions that are required, internally in building something that people feel connected to, that can then go and help the organization achieve its societal, cultural, whatever goals it has. And the organization then isn't simply making a statement about purpose. No, and I wrote a blog about this not so long ago. I think it was a couple of months ago, and I said, is your organization purpose-led or purpose-lazy, or purpose-lazy or purpose-led? And I think most organizations are purpose-lazy. They recognize that kind of a purpose statement is something that you need to put out into the world, but it doesn't always get reinforced with action. And I was working with an organization just recently, and we talked about purpose, and and I asked them how they were using it, and like it was classic. And I don't wish to be critical in any way, shape, or form, because I think with a lots of these things is people want to do the right thing, they just don't know how to do it properly. In my next book, I'm going to talk about what are all those positive things that you can do to build a culture that doesn't turn out to be toxic, right? And so I said, how do you use it? It's like, oh, well, it's in our annual report. It's something that we talk about, there's posters on it. I'm like, all right, okay. And I said, okay, tell me about how you prioritize work. I was like, do you use your purpose statement? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? So the answer is no. I was like, but that, to be a purpose-led organization, then you prioritize work based on, does this contribute to our purpose? Which, what that then does is it means as an organization, and particularly from a leadership team perspective, you have to kind of look at it kind of inwardly yourself and look at the core of what you do and how you do it and how you organize yourself and how you build your strategy and say, well, okay, does all of this stuff align to that? And if it doesn't, you drop it. Otherwise, why have a purpose? Why bother? Why even bother? And the same is true of the vision statement. If the things that you do don't align to the vision that you have for the organization, then you stop them. Then you just don't do them anymore. And at that point, you get that real sense of we're purpose-led. Right. And when you think about creating any kind of employee experience now, that has to be at the core, the purpose of who you are and what you stand for. And there was some research done not so long ago, which found that only 15% of organizations were attracting and retaining candidates really, really well based on kind of purpose and brand and employee growth. right? And I think any kind of organization that considers itself to be employee-led, human-centered, all of these kinds of words, really is driven by its purpose, right? So the purpose then, and there was a great quote from Charlotte Goodman, whose title is, I'm trying to remember, I think she's the People and Purpose Director, or the Purple, it's not that. Purpose and People Experience Director. There you go. Purple. I can't get the word purple out of my head now. Purple and purple. She's the Purpose and People Experience Director for Virgin, right? And what she said was, our purpose drives our decisions and fuels our success, which I love. It drives our decisions. Now, provided that's true in real life, and they're not like, that could make us another $1 million, let's do that, then that's cool. I mean, I'm not working with Virgin yet. So let me give you some examples of good purpose statements, right? So these are and this is research that I'm doing for the new book, but I found some really, really cool ones. And it talks about the role they want to play in the world. So it's not what you'll get from these purpose statements. It's not necessarily about what they do. So you take someone like Foot Locker. Foot Locker sells shoes. That's what they do. They sell shoes. I mean, I'm simplifying. If you work for Foot Locker, yeah, apologies. But their purpose statement is to inspire and empower youth culture, which is cool. Which means that everything that they do, as well as selling shoes, everything that they do, when you think about their marketing campaigns, when you think about how they put their brand into the world, it has to be about inspiring and empowering youth culture. All of their messages need to be relevant. The people that they employ need to have an opinion on youth culture, because then you get that commitment. Now, that's not to say that people need to be young. That's different. I'm 53. I've got an opinion on youth culture, a positive opinion on youth culture that isn't just based on my teenagers. And it's not one of those kind of, when I was a child, what are the things that when I was a child, I was buying Sergio Tacchini tracksuits. That's my youth culture, and listening to great music. But inspire and empower youth culture. So it's more than selling shoes. It's more than selling sportswear. And kind of what they want to do is to really create a purpose around inspiring and empowering youth culture. Kellogg's is another great example, right? Kellogg's makes cereal. I'm going to have some brown flakes for my breakfast in the morning in a bit. And so Kellogg's purpose is creating better days and a place at the table for everyone through our trusted food brand. So what they did was they decided to kind of connect it to the business at the end, which I'm fine with. They could have simply gone, creating better days and a place at the table for everyone. That would have been fine. And it's up to them then to really think about, well, what does that purpose actually mean? Because what you don't want is it for it to be too esoteric, where people are just like, well, what the hell does that mean? Okay, so creating better days. So what does better days look like? So healthier lifestyles. Cool. So also it's planet focused as well. So better days for everyone, where we feel that we're actually doing what we need to do to safeguard the planet. And we're a million miles away from that at the minute. So they've got to think about, kind of sustainable growth. They've got to think about how they support farmers. They've got to think about how they power their machinery, or whoever they buy in from. So all of these things. So this is what creating better days is. And too many organizations still think a purpose statement as, it's a tick box on my culture checklist. Done. We have a purpose. And then, and so when I did a senior team offsite for a whole day around purpose, right? A whole day where we talked about, well, what does this statement actually mean? And when people come in, all they want to do is talk about, can we put it on a mug? Can we put it on? Someone said to me recently, is like, oh, we're thinking of doing, putting our culture on a mouse mat. What do you think? I was like, honestly, it's a bit shit. Like, like it's an idea that you had based on something that you saw, but actually like for culture to mean anything, it's got to be lived. Also, you don't want to be dragging a dirty mouse over your culture, There's that too. it's not the worst idea in the world. If that's your idea, and you might be like, oh, we've got mouse mats and mugs everywhere and our culture's amazing. Great, but it's not the mouse mat and the mug that made it amazing. All right, it's the people. And it's the structures and the processes and all of those good things that you do. But when you talk about having a purpose, creating better days and a place at the table for everyone, all right, this is Kellogg's, a place at the table for everyone. Okay, cool. It's not just about saying, all right, we need, kind of 6 billion chairs and a really long table. All right, but what does a place at the table mean? What does that mean? Is it about feedback? Is it about pricing to make the product easy to buy? Is it about distribution? What is it about? And often it can take a long time for organizations to really think about, well, how do we put this purpose into practice? But make no mistake. And PwC found this recently. They found that 60% of millennials, or close to 60%, I think it was, said that they are deliberately seeking out employers that represent their purpose and values. They're deliberately seeking those people out. So it's not just enough to have a purpose statement, right? So Target's purpose statement to help all families discover the joy of everyday life. Fabulous, great, easy to remember, but only if you put it into practice. Otherwise, what will happen is the media, especially the media, possibly rightly so, it's not right to weaponize things, but what they will do is point out the flaws in the purpose statement if you're not living it. And there are some really confused purpose statements out there that just aren't specific enough. There are some out there that they've turned it into a marketing statement. I think MasterCard's purpose is something like connecting everyone to priceless possibilities. Well, okay, but that just feels like a bit of a marketing statement. What's a priceless possibility? Concept of priceless that's the I suppose the way they market themselves. And it becomes very, very easy for people to go, what does that mean? Or else to kind of throw stones at it a little bit and see it as a demonstration that you're not living your purpose. Not only that, is people need to understand what's expected of them from a behavior perspective in order to live the purpose. Because again, it's only going to take one kind of manager stepping out of line or doing something that kind of runs counter to the statement that's been made for people to go, well, here we go, we're not living the purpose. So I think, the purpose is really, really important. It's really important. I think that in order for it to be effective, then managers and staff need to actually take the time to construct a purpose statement that's genuine, that's real, that has aspiration, that isn't a tick box. Right? So you've got to take the time to do all of those things. And then what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that those actions are lived out on a day-to-day basis in line with the strategic intent of the organization, such that you can achieve the goals, contribute to the culture, and then purpose becomes this self-fulfilling tap that everybody's drinking from, and you become truly purpose-led. So that's it. That's why purpose is important. I hope you enjoyed this Culture and Coffee podcast, and see you again for another show. Ta-ra for now.